So the importance of data is saying that I rather be more people across the world than now in the and right now we're going to
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to class. Can someone confirm you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Awesome. All right, so in this first class, we just want to have an overview of cybersecurity, especially in the first 1 hour class, and get everyone started on the same line as much as we can. And thereafter, yes, okay. So we'll do introduction, take as many questions as we can in the first 1 hour, and then in the following 2 hours thereafter, we'll start the training proper. All right, I'm aware that some people registered for the module 2 of cybersecurity, the one we call cloud security. But we just wanted to use this to just do an overview and get everybody introduced to this concept. So you find your bearing and you don't ask questions midway, or you're not confused. You say, oh, I thought this was this, I thought this was that. All right. So we'll start by talking about both of them generally, and then focus on this one in the last 2 hours of class today. All right, feel free, especially in the first 1 hour of class, to ask questions, to get clarification, so that you have a good sense of direction, and then you know where you are going within the cybersecurity domain, and then you can settle down, put your mind to it as we commence the training proper. All right. So,
I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Akin, can you be a bit louder? Because I'm kind of struggling to hear. My volume is all the way up.
Okay, I'll try. I'm already using my earpiece. Okay. Okay, so yes. So cybersecurity, cyber. All right, you could spell in 2 words or in 1 word. 1 word is the American style, 2 words is British. All right. So, generally speaking, you may have heard of cybersecurity, people talking about one. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Okay, don't worry. Cybersecurity is wide, actually. It's a wide spectrum, and it covers almost everything in cloud. So we have cybersecurity leadership, and governance. All right. We have cybersecurity management and compliance. We have cybersecurity operations and technology. And then, of course, we have third-party cybersecurity. All right. These are not the domains. These are just we're trying to scope them so that when we say cybersecurity, we could be talking at the leadership and governance level. All right. In which case you hear things like cybersecurity roles, cybersecurity policies, and especially cybersecurity governance. That is just one aspect of cybersecurity. And then we have another aspect of cybersecurity compliance, where you may hear about cybersecurity risk management, cybersecurity compliance, cybersecurity national identity standard, cybersecurity review, cybersecurity audit, and so on and so forth. By the way, I have all of the details in the notes for you, so you may take notes, that's fine, but if I want to spend my time writing notes when we already have it in the manual, it will take your own time, so I'll just explain that. And then we'll have cybersecurity operations. This is where we'll be focusing, cybersecurity operations. So at this level, we're talking about human resources, we're talking about identity and access management, we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about payment, the different standards, yes, and regulations, payment, card industry, for example. We're talking about event management. We're talking about vulnerability scanning and all of that. So this is where we'll be focusing in the course of the training. And of course, closely related to that, we have third party that may be contracted by IT companies and other companies practicing this operational and technology standards of cybersecurity, but because they are not security experts, because they are not IT companies per se, maybe they are banking, they are manufacturing, then it could be that job could be contracted to a third party. All right. So under the third party cybersecurity category, you talk about things like vendors. So you have vendors doing vendor management, and then you have the cloud computing, for example, the company contracting the cyber functions of its operations to cloud operators like AWS, and especially Azure, like we are going to see the second module, and so on and so forth. All right, so do not be distracted when somebody talks about governance in cybersecurity, compliance in cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. We'll talk a bit about all of those within here, but our main focus will be operations. In other words, we are training you to become the hands-on person that actually implements what should be done in order to reach a particular goal. So all of these other guys that do not implement, we generally call them whiteboard cybersecurity experts. But for you that would understand the concept, know what you are doing, and go ahead to actually make things happen, to implement, to remediate, we call you keyboard cybersecurity expert. All right, so we're training you to be keyboard. All right. So having taken that peep into the entire space of cybersecurity, and knowing that there is the leadership. We'll talk more about this. This is just an overview. There's governance and so on and so forth. Let us now zoom into operations and technology. So every time we talk operations and technology, this is the picture we'll be drawing time and time and time again. And this is the picture we'd always have in mind in explaining or when explaining what happens in operations. So this is the picture. So there is always this scenario of some user trying to access so we have your application. The organization you are working for now has an application. So we call that application app. And this application is always tied to database. So this application would connect to a database where it pushes info that you type here. For example, you type in your username and password, it is saved to a database, and then you want to retrieve info. Maybe you want to retrieve what is the news saying on CNN's website? What's new in the news today? Then you connect to a database and it gives you here. So this is your company's application. This is the critical. This is the whole reason your company exists. Application and database. Ideally, they are one, but for this purpose, we just separate them. All right. So this application and database must exist within a network. Otherwise, it will not work alone by itself. It must exist within a network. So you have a network, which is your company's network. Usually this network will be in cloud, but let's not talk about that. So we have this network, company's network, the organization's network. So there is this user. If we assume that this application is Uber, for example, and you are working for Uber, so there are users, Uber users all over the world that will connect through some endpoint, mobile phone or some system like a laptop or a regular desktop, right? Whatever it is, Internet of Things. I mean, this could be anything, but for simplicity, let's just use a laptop here. So we call this guy the user. We call this the endpoint. And they would normally connect through a public network, for example, the internet. So we have this network, all right? So in order not to confuse you between this network and this network, I'm just going to take this out. We already know that all of this is executed within the network, but let me just remove this one. Okay. So this is the picture what I always have in mind. In fact, okay, it's just the first time, so I can afford to. So at this level, there is security. At this level, you need to identify, you as the security personnel, security expert for this organization, for example, you are responsible from this point all the way to this point. Who and who is allowed to connect to this application through this organization's resource assets? Who and who? So at this level, you must be able to identify the user that is attempting to connect via this public network to your organization's resources, all right? You must have some level of control or access granting at the endpoint level. It's not just about the user. What kind of devices are allowed to connect, all right? Over what network and over what network protocol is that allowed? And when they eventually come to your organization's network, what and what are they allowed? Who is allowed to access the application and who is allowed to connect to the database? Not just being allowed now, what is the level of access that they would have when they allow to come, for example, into this network? So this brings us to security at the user level. So there is security at the user level, there is endpoint security, there is network security, there is application security, there is data security. All right? So we could call this the five domains of cybersecurity, depending on what curriculum we are using. Others would say 9 domains, 7 domains, and so on and so forth. But here, it means that somebody can specialize here and simply manage users, in which case we call that category IAM, Identity and Access Managers or management at this level. We could call, somebody can specialize at endpoint, in which case this endpoint could be generally server security, network security, and so on and so forth. We cannot go into details now. But at some point, the work here, the access, the resources that you have access to could be such that it now becomes difficult to manage them all individually. So if we do, all right, it becomes difficult to manage them all individually, which means as a cybersecurity expert on this network, if you want to manage user, you have to come specifically to the system that manages user here. So you want to be able to monitor users who comes in, what do they have access to, and so on and so forth. Endpoint, you need another system, another access control system that is able to see all of the systems that are connecting right now to your organization's network. All right? You want to be able to see at any point in time what networks are connected, through what ports, and so on and so forth. So at some point, this will become cumbersome. So what cybersecurity has for this is that all of this can be managed centrally. In other words, all of this, okay, pardon me, I didn't want to use any technical word right now, but all of the logs that are generated here that you can view to know what is going on as far as the different users connecting to your application, all of the logs that are here in terms of where they are connecting from, where their systems are all over the world, all of the logs here, they can all be aggregated to a central place and connected to a central monitoring system where all of the logs will come to, so that instead of coming here to check about user, coming here to check about that, coming here to check about it, coming to application to see who and who is accessing you now. How many people from Africa are on board right now? Coming to the database, no. All of them can be seen from a central point. So this central monitoring tool, from where you can view, monitor, and control all of your assets from here end to end, we generally call it SIEM. SIEM. So that is possible using SIEM. All right. Then when you, even though your work is to ensure that only legal and authorized users are allowed to come onto the network, only relevant ports are open here to allow them into the network, only relevant ports are open for only this application server to communicate with the database server. Even though you have put all of that in place, there is still probability, in fact, high possibility of security breach. In other words, something that you have not allowed being able to gain access to these assets, to all of these IT assets. If that was not possible, then once the work is done of securing these assets, then there is no more work to do, and there'll be no space for cybersecurity people like you. There'll be no need for this class. So even though we have put all of the necessary practice in place to prevent that, it still happens once in a while that intruders, attackers successfully come into our network. So when that happens, this is what we're going to do. There's going to be another unit, another domain there called SOA. So this one is to detect what you may call monitoring, and this one is to respond. So when we do when it happens that we have security breaches, our vulnerability, the vulnerability of this network, you don't know what that is for now, but the weakness of this network has been compromised such that somebody that should not be here, or a port that should not be open is now open, so that an application that should not be accessed is now accessed. There will be a trigger, there will be an alarm. So there will be alert, you will see it here, you will detect it here. When you detect it, then you do something so that the response team, so that somebody can do something about it to rectify that anomaly here. All right. So these two are usually together, sometimes the same application acting as both SIEM and SOA in the Security Operations Center. So this is another domain. This is another area that you can specialize in. Another person can specialize here, but like we said, usually they are combined. They are usually the same, or the same tool, or a tool that is made up of these two different parts. So altogether, we now have 1, 2, 3 domains of cybersecurity, 4, 5, 6, 7 domains of cybersecurity that you can ultimately specialize and become an expert in. All right. So SOC is one, which is monitoring and then taking action when something happens in order for that intrusion to be rectified and return the operations, the working system of the organization to normalcy, and then each of them. So we're going to talk about each part of all of this architecture in the course of our training. All right. So at this level, we'll talk about all of them in month 1, and then subsequently, yes, even in month 2, in our job, we're still also going to look at practically how we do security at the IAM level, how we do security at all of the levels using the respective applications and tools that would help us resolve issues at each of the domain layers. All right, so this is the picture we should always have in mind. So we're going to draw this many times over and over so that we get, okay, right now we're working around here. This is what it means. Right now we're working over time. You should get really used to it. But for now, I just wanted to mention that all together, we'll be talking about 7 domains within cybersecurity. Managing user and giving user access is one. Managing endpoints, that is the systems from which users log in, and giving them access according to their IP addresses, according to their MAC addresses, managing the network. So in one word, we are going to have an overview in order to understand what each of these represent. Because what you don't understand, you cannot secure. We are going to look at users, we are going to look at endpoints, we are going to look at networks, we are going to look at applications, and so on and so forth. Practically, particularly in the second one. Practically means we are going to, for each of them, we are going to use the industry standard tool to learn what it is, the threats and vulnerabilities around it, and then what we can do to secure it according to industry standard and according to the certification that are relevant to that domain. All right. So, put differently, let us put this one in a different format that may help you understand it better. I was trying to gain an overview. So another way for me to represent this, so you understand it, is this. So at the core of everything that we do, whether we are Facebook, Uber, Zoom, any application that you can think of, the core of what we do is that we have the application. So we have the application. That is the real core. So when we have the application, according to what we just drew now, what we just, the understanding we just had, maybe it's too early to ask questions, so I'm just going to go ahead. When we have the application, usually the application will run within container, but so the application is going to run within your server. But generally we call server endpoint relative to the diagram that we had earlier on. All right. So this server will run on your network. It's the organization's network. Okay. And then users will access this application through the network. All right. So there'll be a user here trying to access the application through the internet, through some public network. All right. So what we want to do, and then one more thing. Once anomaly, something strange, something that is not allowed, comes into this network, it should be detected. So we have detect. And then we should take action in order to remediate, to solve the issue that was detected. Don't take action. That is a response. We respond. All right. And usually the response will be technical team, but so we have the user, we have the public network, we have interfacing with our own private network, we have the endpoint. So we said 1, 2, this network, so we're not building that 3, 4, 5, 6. What is missing? We counted 7 the last time. So we said user, network, data. Data is missing here. Okay, data is missing because usually it's part of application, but let's put it here. So we are going to separate it at your level. So that's our database. So let's call that one. Yeah, let's just leave it one. So these are the 7 domains. It's another way of just helping you understand it from what way. All right, then the response can do something about what is going on in operations so that they can remove the malware, they can remove the virus, they can block the port that is being exposed, they can block an entire IP set of IP addresses and so on and so forth. All right, I'm sorry you don't understand what those means yet. What those mean yet, I assume. We're going to explain them one by one. But when we talk about cybersecurity at the level of this class, we are talking about securing users, securing networks, securing applications and the accompanying data endpoints, detecting any anomalies, taking action that would restore our operations to normals. All right. Any questions for now? Okay. So with that in mind now, let's, before we start this proper, before we come back to this, let me give you an overview of what you should expect to learn from this, and in case anybody from the other class, from the Azure class is here, what we expect to learn there as well. So from this month 1, in this month 1 of training, we are going to learn, we are going to understand how networks work. How networks work. So for that reason, we are going to set up our own network, our own virtual lab, where in fact, we'll set it up by ourselves. And then in the process of setting it up, we are going to use it to understand how networks work. So we'll set up virtual. Okay, I'll explain what virtual means. Virtual enterprise networks. enterprise network. And that will form our lab where we'll practice everything we'll be doing. So as part of that, we are going to administer the virtual lab that we are going to set up. The virtual lab we are setting up will be built on Windows Server. We use Windows Server operating system to set up that enterprise network. And when we use Windows Server to set up an enterprise network, we start to call that enterprise network specifically domain. It could be set up with Linux or other operating systems, but when it is set up with Windows Server, like we're going to do, we call it domain. So we're going to learn how to administer domains because we're going to set up. So in this one, we're going to create maybe 2, maybe 3 virtual machines. On one, we'll load Windows Server operating system, which means this becomes our server. And then we're going to have 1 client and 2 clients, client 1, client 2. And then we're going to learn how to join these clients to this Windows Server operating system. All right. So we'll learn how to create user accounts because it's going to form a network now. And then how to manage the user accounts and how to secure this environment, this enterprise network environment within our own virtual environment. So that gives us the experience that, okay, as IT people, we are coming from a background where it's basically called enterprise. Don't need to we're coming from enterprise network background, where we have learned and understood how networks and therefore everything else within network work. Every time we talk about network, our interest is what is the network holding for us? So the network is like your home, your house. All right. When we talk about network in IT, see it as your house. What's the reason you have a house? What's the reason you have a home? So you have a shelter over your head, you can protect your properties, you can. So in this case, your properties that are in the house, for which reason, and yourself, for which reason you are building the home, is your data. All right, it's your data. So what's the reason you have home? So that you can have your properties protected. The reason you have your network. So when we talk about network, it is great, but our interest is more of the content, the data, and the application that is running inside the network. All right, sorry if that confuses you, but we'll explain that. So then we're also going to learn how to configure access control. All right, access control using this network. So we're going to set up files, servers, not application at this level. And then we're going to set up different user Tom, user Dick, user Akin, and then give them access or deny them access to resources. And then come to client and try to log in as Tom and see if we successfully, if the denial we gave here is actually working. So once we test it and it works, we go back, we remove the denial, we give access, we test it, it works. We can now put it in our resume. I know how to grant access and remove access within Windows. So this is the way you gather all of the experiences one by one and use it to build your resume. All right. 4, we are going to learn how to do vulnerability management. In other words, we are talking about, this time we can explain what vulnerability is. So when you have your network, again, the network is the outermost part of your resources that is connecting to a user. So we'll find ourselves talking about the network. All right. By the time we go past the network and we're not talking about the data inside the network, that means we already understand fully what networks are. Anyway, so for vulnerability management, So vulnerability simply means that when we create our network, it is not 100% and permanently secure. There are smart AI, smart programs, smart people that would always find a weakness around our network and say, everything around this network is great. However, I have seen a loophole, a door that is not fully closed that I can use to enter this network and go and access the data or the server that is running on that network. So this weakness that somebody may discover on this wall of our house is called vulnerability. All right? The English word is weakness, but technically you say vulnerability. So the thief that is waiting to exploit this vulnerability may always be scanning this network until he finds a loophole, some weakness that he can exploit, and that is risk. It exposes this asset to the public anyway. So we're going to run tools like Nessus, for example. There is a tool called Tenable Nessus. And we're going to learn how to use it to scan this network so that we'll see how secure is this network, what are the vulnerabilities there, and what should we do as a result of the report from this scanning to further secure this network and remove this weakness that has put this whole network in a risky position. All right, so we're going to do that practically. But if we didn't have a lab, then where are we going to get a network to practice that one? By the way, it is illegal for you to use somebody else's network to practice this. Because just as it's illegal for you to go and destroy somebody's home just because you want to test the strength of the wall or of the fence to prove that your wall is not strong, your front door is not strong, then you go and destroy it. No. So is it also illegal for you to go and test anything cybersecurity, any vulnerability scanning, any penetration testing, any form of trying to prove that somebody's network is not secure? No, it's not allowed. You can be arrested for that. It's a crime. So we need to build our own lab where we can do that. So we are going to do that. And then other things we are going to do, we are going to be able to analyze. Having done our vulnerability scanning and having assessed the current security posture of our network, we should be able to analyze it and give report to management and so on and so forth. And then we'll use other tools. Let's not dwell too much on this. We'll use other tools like Wireshark, the powerful tool for vulnerability scanning. We'll use Nmap. And then we use for SIM, we learn to install and configure Splunk and so on and so forth. So all of this we'll do in month 1. So that at the end of month 1, you come out as bearing the title of Vulnerability Management Analyst or Information Security Analyst. That's what you come out of, analyst. All right. But from the previous class, we're looking at job opportunities, and we found that the role that came up as the best fit for what we have learned under this month 1 is vulnerability management analyst. So this is the first, this is the role that really fits. So when you are looking for a job after this first month, this is the thing to look for. This is the number 1. If you look for information security analyst, of course, some will come up, but we'll find that the jobs that came up under here are just perfect. You can almost 90% perfect for the curriculum that we have. I mean, fit for that curriculum. All right. Then after that, in month 2, we are doing, in all of this, month 1, we will not go to cloud. We'll be working from our lab environment that we created on our laptop, on our system. And then that's where we'll be doing all of the tests, running almost all of the tools here and seeing the result. We are not going to cloud. But in month 2, we are going to take this skill, this knowledge that we have gained from month 1, and we are going to go into cloud. Specifically, we are going into Azure cloud. All right, and then we are going to build on this knowledge. So in Azure now, in month 2, we'll be doing IAM, Identity and Access Management. Just like you created users within the domain, and then you give access at this level now, you're also going to create users, and it's going to be really, really simple for you because you already learned to do it for an enterprise network. You are going to learn how to use. Earlier on, you already knew how to do it with the service called Active Directory services. But in cloud, that same service is now called, instead of Azure directory service, it's now called Microsoft Entra ID. All right, so you're going to learn how to use Microsoft Entra ID for IAM roles, and then you're also going to learn how to use Microsoft Entra ID privilege identity management. All right, those two will make you IAM engineer. All right, then on top of that, we are going to look at this one looks at users specifically. So you are managing users there. On top of that, we are going to look at applications. And then we say as a security, because this one is called Azure Security Engineer. So as a security engineer, you are not just managing IAM. Managing IAM is just like 30% of the work. The remaining 70%, you should be able to set up the environment into which your developers will deploy applications so that you as the security guy can now manage who has access to these applications. So you are going to do application security. You are going to do key management, call it key vault. How to generate your certificates, your keys, your secret that your developers would use in doing their work and to ultimately deploy there. So you are going to learn how to create and secure databases. You are going to learn to create and secure networks. All right? So these are the different domains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What else? Data, application, network, endpoint. Yeah, endpoint is already contained there. And then on top of that, you are now also going to see how SIEM. Remember SIEM? Security Information and Event Management. We are going to use a tool owned and managed by Microsoft Azure to see how SIEM works. You are going to load it and integrate it as, oh, okay, look at the logs. This is, okay, let me do something that would breach the security of the network and see how this SIEM will pick it and how I can analyze it to say, 4 o'clock yesterday, when there was no one watching, you did this, you did this, you did this, look at the proof. How are you able to say that? So the tool that Azure uses to do this, that is native to Azure, is called Azure Sentinel. All right, so we're going to learn to use that. And then we're going to learn to secure the entire infrastructure and the entire access from a central point, because it now becomes difficult for you to see, you want to secure this one separately, secure this one separately, secure. So you want to build Azure security around all of the infrastructure, all of the services, not just infrastructure, that you are managing, that you are securing on behalf of your organization. All right. So the singular tool that is an umbrella, unifying umbrella that can secure everything together, that is native to Azure, that is Azure proprietary, is called Defender, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. All right. So by the time you learn all of this, you can now conveniently call yourself Azure, specifically Azure Security Engineer. And then that leads to AZ 500, which is the curriculum that we are using to teach you. So if you want to write that certification, then that is the certification that you should write for Azure Security Engineer. All right, so this is the overview of what we'll cover in the first month And then if you decide that you want to go ahead and become Azure Security Engineer, the second one. It is at this level that you really say that you are a keyboard person. The first month will be a little of keyboard as well, because we are going to use tools, but it is really more. It's like 70% of understanding the concepts and the meaning behind what you'll be doing later. Unlike this one that is like 70%, in fact, maybe 80% hand keyboard. Let's just say up to 5%. Unlike for the month 2, month 1 will be something like 30% thereabout keyboard. All right, and then month 1 is mostly about understanding concept. So there's a lot of talk, but the good thing is we still have some practicals that you can take home to say, yes, at the end of the day, I'm able to run at least 3 to 4 different types of tools to test the security posture of any organization's network as an information security consultant. All right. And when you're able to do that, then a lot of info is contained within the report that you can now use to do whatever you need to do next. It's mostly, at that level, it's mostly about what the tool tells you. It's not really about, it's not so much about what you are going to do thereafter. It's just a report that you are generating and then analyzing the report, understanding the report enough to be able to explain that this is just like you are diagnosing. You just find the symptoms, but you are not the person who gives the medication. All right. And you don't watch to see whether the medication actually works. That's what that one is like. But unlike the other case, you actually give medication. Even if somebody else diagnosed, you actually give the medication. All right. So at this juncture, I would just take a few questions to see whether you are following what we are saying so far, or whether everything is the kind of jargon at this point, so that I know what level to come to. Yes. Contributions, questions. Did you understand what I have explained so far? Is there something you did not understand that you wish me to talk about? Yes. Unmute yourself to make a contribution.
Yeah, I think what I have to say is that the way you have explained this, has been very, very clear, and it's very easy to understand, how the month 1 and month 2, have to play a role in where we're heading to. And I think, like you said, the month 1 has a lot to do with the whiteboard cybersecurity aspect, and the month 2 is probably keyboard. But what I want to know is that, do month 1 and month 2 have to go together in order to get to the level we are planning to get, or you can just base on month 1 and just still be able to do your job, have a good job, and just focus only on month 1.
Okay, good question.
And secondly, you spoke about public network in the month 1. So what I want to understand about public network, because sometimes I get confused about public network. So you said that public network, so like the Wi-Fi I use in my house, to get to the Zoom, is that a public network? So I want to understand like how the public network works, or how,
Okay, I'll try, even though it's kind of advanced right now, but I'll try. Okay,
thank you.
so
Thank you, sir.
the first question. The first question was saying no. So month 1 and month 2 are independent. They are independent. So you don't necessarily have to take month 1 in order to progress to month 2? No, to be honest. But if what you want is, yes, month 2 is the goal. I mean, if you relate them, if you compare them, this is definitely where you want to be, not month 1. All right? So, if month 2 is your goal, however, you are completely new to IT, you want at least to have a good foundation on which to build the knowledge of month 2, so that it's not what you call wuru to the answer. Then it's a good idea to take month 1, have a good understanding of the concept. Like we are discussing now, you have the opportunity to ask questions about what is public network, what is private network, what's the difference between public IP, all of those little basics. You have the opportunity to really learn them, understand the terminology before you build this. It will be a good idea. But overall, it's not compulsory that you must first of all take this before you take this. No, unless you just feel that. So there are people in the group who may not necessarily have taken month 1, but because of the exposure they already have to IT, they feel that we don't need this. I know cloud enough to be able to just go straight. So it's good. I don't know if I answered that question. So while it is not compulsory, while month 1 is not a prerequisite for month 2, it is recommended if you are new to IT. But if you're already a developer, you're already a cloud person, you already know 1 or 2 things about IT, then we can build on that knowledge, that skill, that background that you already have. And then I am optimistic that we can just go straight to month 2 and you'll still be able to cope.
Okay, can I add one more, sir? So after month 1 is completed, is it advisable to like go into the field, get a job, work, and have some kind of experience for some period of time, then build on that experience, and your hands is already strong, your technicality is already strong. Then you can come back to month 2, because or do you think that after month 1 we go to month 2, that will be enough to like just put us there? Because I feel that month 1 also needs some level of practical experience in terms of job environment and job space. But so I want to know that, is it possible to just get done with month 1, don't even like look for a job or don't even do anything, then go straight to month 2, then you start doing the job of month 2 instead of even having work experience about month 1?
I'm not teaching you month 1 to go and get a job, to be honest. I'm teaching you month 1 to gain the foundation and the concept to understand month 2. So month 2 is the real thing. However, if somebody now feels that, look at everything he taught us, all of that is already making sense. I'm already looking at LinkedIn, at Indeed, and I'm just getting jobs that I just fit perfectly for. Why don't I just put my resume out there? I could be lucky to get a job. Why not? Yes, give it a try. Okay. If you get a job based on what we have learned in class, like the previous class that were sending me, yes, fine. However, I would prefer that you go all the way to month 2, so that you don't fall in the category of people who got job and within 1 year, 2 years, they are back to the job market because the foundation is not strong. Because this is something anybody can learn within 1 month and come back to the market. We call it low entry barrier. Compared to this one where you really have to do some, I said it's like 75% hands-on. Not everybody is practical friendly. People rather go and do simple memorizing of concepts. So I'll definitely recommend this for a career build. You want to build a career around cybersecurity that would even you will be proud of, and then you can raise your head anywhere. It's not just some 2 days boot camp or 3 days, then this is it. Okay. If you get a job with this, should you do it? Why not? Why would you reject a 70K, 75K job just because you can be doing it and then it's just 2 days a week? But is it likely that you get a job with this, considering that it's low entry, anybody can just go and learn this and come and compete with you? Not so likely. What about this? Is it likely? Yes, this is likely. You know this? Yes. Because especially, this is cloud. Everything is cloud. This is not really cloud. This is just teaching you more like a lab, a simulated environment, not the real thing. So this is real life. This is simulation. So based on these little differences, I conclude that month 2 is the goal you should keep focused on Monto.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So public and private cloud. So, for example, when we take, networks, and that's relative. The best example would be to go into cloud. All right. So if I go into cloud and I set up a web server in cloud and I put my website there for my organization, for Shell, I work for Shell, and I put website there. And then everybody is able to come browse from wherever, every part of the world, and they're able to access this website. Then that is a public domain. It's a public network. But I can also have a maybe not a website. Now I have a database that this website connects to, so that depending on what you request on this website, it will fetch the info from the database and give it to you here. Now, this database contains info, private info, PII, like a social security number. All right. So even though it is connected to this front-end server, it is not allowed to forward this info to this website. But how come? How come it is separated from this one? So the fact that you have that in a separate area where it's separated by firewall, and therefore it is not accessible just like this one is accessible from anywhere in the world. In fact, the only port that is connecting this server to this server, any data coming in through here is scrutinized, the highest level of security ever, and ultimately 91 to 95% of the time they are denied because they are not the right kind of packet. So this one that you have here, which is not readily available to the public compared to this one, this is a private network. So private means you have that house, that network that we talk about being your home, your living room, that anybody coming to your house can arrive at. That is the public part. And then your private room, your bedroom, you need to give special permission before anybody can go to your bedroom. That's your private network. So to bring that to context, generally, your organization's network will have plenty of assets. Some of them will be accessed by can be accessed by almost anybody. That asset that can be accessed by almost anybody is placed on a public network. That is why it can be accessed by almost anybody. And then the other part that is secret, that must not be accessed by anybody. In fact, it is forbidden by the law of, by the different regulatory laws and regulations that we'll be talking about, that anybody should be able to access your GDPR is the most common, access your information here. So the fact that nobody is able to access it, even though it's on AWS, even though it's on Azure, means that it is private. So that's the context which I use private network and public network. It simply means what is allowed for the public to see and what is not allowed for the public to see. Does that help?
Yeah, that's very clear, man. You've answered it perfectly.
All right. All right. So now we know what we are covering in the first 1 month, and we know what we'll be covering in the second month. All right. So that brings us to the end of the first 1 hour, where we are doing an overview of the difference of the courses and the modules that we'll be covering. All right. Now let's come back to module 1 and start module 1 proper. That is month 1 training, which is cybersecurity, called we actually call it 3 different names, so any of them will serve. And now we have even renamed it today. We said the best name is vulnerability management expert. All right, so let us start that one now. And we're starting with core security goals. All right, guys, let's start the class. Month 1, cybersecurity. Lecture 1. In this lecture 1, I have a manual for you. Let me quickly show you the manual. What's 365? Are you seeing my manual, my Office 365? Can you see what I'm sharing with you? Are you seeing my Word document?
No.
Okay. Do I share this? Let me see. Share. Okay, so this is it. All right, so this is the manual already prepared. All right, so that's what we just explained in class, what I said. So cybersecurity training to make you a joint engineer. So lesson 1, core security goals. So this manual, after class, if you leave your email address and all of it, yeah, basically your email address, if you have made payment, then I'll share this manual with you. You can take notes, but there's really no need to be too elaborate because you already have everything in the manual. The tool that we are going to set up, how to set it up step by step, and how to use them, how to do your vulnerability scanning, and how to interpret them. Everything's already in the manual. All right. So, but we'll be starting with, so today we are going to download and set up our virtual environment. But before we do that, let's quickly explain some concepts. All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to show you that I have a manual for you. That's why I loaded it. But we don't need it right now. Okay. So core security goals. Now, we have info security. All right. So when we're securing all things information, all right, all things information, physical, even the one in our brain that is not physical yet, mental, whether it is software, all kinds of information in our office, all right? So security around all kinds of information, we call that information security. Now, amongst all of this information, there is a category of information that is specifically related to IT. And that basically has to do with our IT hardware. Hardware simply means the physical part that you can touch of computer, like your laptop, your servers, anything that you can, your servers at the office, your cables, your routers, your switches, they are all hardware. All right. And then software will be the programs running inside hardware that you cannot see. All right. If not that we are using Zoom now, you will not have been able to see what we are doing. So Zoom is software application. All right. So whether it's hardware, whether it's software, whether it's data, as long as it's IT specific, we call all of that IT security. All right. So cybersecurity is a subset of IT security. Whereas in IT security, we're talking about all hardware, all software, all data. In cybersecurity, we're talking specifically about the part of this data that can be exposed to the internet, exposable to the internet. So if I have hardware, 5 laptops that are not connected to the internet, they are not connected. They are not connected to modem. It's just for my own personal use, nothing to do with internet. Then, however I'm securing them, it is not cybersecurity. It has nothing to do with cyber. because they are not exposed to the internet. But if I'm on cloud, I'm deploying my resources on AWS, for example, just by virtue of being in cloud, unless, again, like we said earlier on, I deliberately place them in a private network where they will not be accessible by anyone, then I'm talking about cybersecurity at that level. All right. And then after cybersecurity, we have what we call cloud security. All right. So cloud security now is a further subset of cybersecurity, where we are talking about infrastructure that are deployed in cloud relative to infrastructure that are on the internet but are not in cloud. In other words, in my house, like the guy who spoke earlier on, he has his refrigerator, his car, and then his laptop all connected to the internet. But that is not in cloud. Everything is within his home. All right. We could have had a replica of that situation where his server is in cloud, at least. Maybe he cannot drive his car on the internet. I mean, the server is in cloud now. So this server here can be outside of cloud or can be inside cloud. If it is within cloud, the kind of security that I'll be securing here will fall under cloud security. But if it is outside of cloud, it is not cloud security. It's simply cyber security. Cyber, because even though it is not in cloud, it's in my home, physical home, it's still connected through my modem to the internet. Because it is connected to the internet, the security that is related to that and everything within is cyber security. For this one, it's not only cyber security, it's also cloud security. I'm not just securing this, I'm also securing the cloud environment around it. All right. So we'll talk about information security, information technology security, cyber security, cloud security. Can you tell the difference now? Can anyone tell the difference? Class has started, so I need you to be interactive now. Who can unmute so that we can hear from you?
Yes, we can tell the difference.
Okay. All right. So every time we are building our security, whether at the level of cloud, at the level of cyber, at the level of IT security, of course, I think it starts from IT security. Information is just old school, nothing to do with. Yes, even at that level too, all kinds of security. We have three things in mind. We are always securing our users, our networks, our endpoints, our data, our application. We are always securing them against these 3 points called CIA. All right. We want to always ensure the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of our data. That's the whole goal of security. That's the whole goal. CIA. We call the CIA triad. So what does this mean? Simply, it means that the goal that we have in mind to pursue every time we're talking about security is C for confidentiality. That means that our data is confidential. That it simply means that only the people and only the applications that we genuinely intend to give access to our data should have access. That's the meaning of confidentiality. Under no circumstance should somebody that should normally not have access to data gain access to that data. You want to avoid that by all means, 100% with your blood. So that's the meaning of confidentiality. So we don't ever want a situation where, for example, we have what we had earlier on. We have this endpoint, even though this endpoint may be trusted by the network, and then to connect to our application, and then our application connecting to the database, but this user had just logged out, and then a new user just logged in now, and then it's using some backdoor methods to gain access to this whole access just because this other guy used the same route. It should never happen. When that happens, then we have breached the confidentiality of our data. It's a serious matter. It should never happen. The day it happens, the CEO, down to the operator, the operations person, from the governance level all the way to the last person that is responsible for that act of omission or commission, they will automatically lose their job. In fact, they could even be sanctioned. All right. So that's the meaning of confidentiality. Integrity means that once we have data and we claim that data is from this network, for example, this is our US office. And then this data is leaving US office to maybe UK office. Then UK office, or even that's even too complex. Any user of our application, maybe this application is again Uber. Any user, even if it's not a corporate user, just an ordinary user of this application, when he gets data from Uber, from our application, he should always be able to see, because this data is coming from Uber, then it is trustworthy and I can depend and rely on it to use for whatever I want to use it for. You should not be afraid that that data is not exactly what it says, and therefore there will be need to conduct further assessment to confirm that the data, yeah, there could be in complex scenarios that it's not this simple, there could be need for that. But basically, I'm saying that if this guy says 1200 and this guy receives 1200, there should be integrity. It should be able to say, yes, because I received 1200 from Uber, then it is 1200. I'm not afraid that it was originally 1500 and then was modified, changed to 1200. No. So the ability for me to trust data coming from this application, coming from this network, even though it is passing through the public network and anything could have happened, that is integrity. We must ensure data integrity. And then we must ensure, sometimes it's not just data, it's the entire system. So instead of talking about data, database, network, I can just call everything together system. So system integrity. Availability means that whatever I need to put in place so that all of the 2.5 billion customers connected to this application, all right, would always, should never have a reason not to have access to this application. At every point they want to have access to this application because they are the genuine subscribers to this Netflix application, they should always have access. The day my application goes down for 1 hour, or even, I mean, depending on what the regulation says, the threshold is, but let's just assume for 24 hours and they are not able to have access, then my availability has been breached. And again, there are laws and regulations in place to say that must never happen. So you must put things in place, tactics, technologies, tools, etc. in place to make sure that your system is highly available. All right. So now that you know about CIA, this triad of CIA, now let us go ahead to begin to look at security of our environment, of our network, of our system with this in mind, with CIA in mind. All right. So when we talk about security with the CIA in mind, first of all, let's quickly tell you that security can be categorized into 3 different kinds of controls. All right, so we have physical security, which is not much of our work here. we have organizational security, and then of course the one that is really our work as technical people, as operational people, technical security, and then we have administrative security. All right, so physical security is for physical security people, the guards, whether they are armed or not. So this is about the physical assets, the physical infrastructure of our data center. So in this case, we are not talking about cloud. We are talking about the physical hardware, the physical server, the physical memories, the physical storage, the air conditioner, the generators, being actually in a physical house, in a physical place from where they provide all of these resources that are available to us as cloud services. All right. So for that data center, we call that place data center. We need physical security. All right. Then we'll talk about organizational security. It simply means having the right people, the right processes, and the right technology in place to enhance our security. All right. Technical security, this is where we talk about firewall, network access control, and of course, the most popular one that we're going to talk about, access control at the technical level, access control, all right, and so on and so forth. All right, so this is the core. This is where we'll really be dwelling. That's what we'll be learning. Outside of that, there's also administrative security, and this comes through strategies, policies, standards, regulations, and so on and so forth. All right. So the policy says every time we set up a server that is going to transact customers' credit card, that's going to hold customer credit card transaction, it must mean this, it must mean this, it must mean this. All right. Those are administrative policies. All right. Although they are related to this, but they are considered different. All right. So even though we have physical security, organizational security, technical security, administrative security, we as operational people, we are mostly concerned about technical security. We leave administrative security to governance and leadership, and then whatever they pass to us as procedures from there, we would execute. Physical security would do. And then this is also, the organization is at the organization level where they hire the right people with the right security clearance, with the right technical skill and technical knowledge, with the right understanding and vocabularies of cybersecurity, frameworks, terminologies, and so on and so forth. That is what they do here. All right, so technical security. Before we go into practical, how much time have we spent? Okay, we're going to have a short break, and then we'll come back, do just a little bit more of theory, and then we'll go and do practicals by setting up our lab. The lab where we'll be practicing all of this CIA, we'll practice some of the things we'll talk about. All right, so before we go on a short break, let's do a little bit more. Any questions? Somebody trying to say something? Okay. All right. Another way to look at security again is levels of application. So there are different levels, I don't have to rub that, at which we apply all of these security measures. All right. So it's just for theory, nothing. So we have preventive security, we have detective security, we have corrective security, we have deterrent. All right. Then we have compensating. This is just for theory, like I said, nothing really. All right. So preventive security, especially at the physical layer, physical level. So you are putting action in place or putting mechanism in place to ensure, to prevent action from happening. All right. to prevent security breaches. For example, at the administrative level, we talk about drug tests before you hire a security person. Talk about clearance, that he has some security clearance if he's going to be dealing with confidential data. All right. At the technical level, you may put in place a firewall, since we are concerned about technical, and then what you call a intrusion prevention system. We'll talk more about it, and then least privilege. All right, so detective is controls that detect during or after an attack. At the physical level, we'll have CCTV, all right, that you can go back to, intrusion detection systems, and then of course, at the technical level, we talked about logs earlier on briefly, if you remember. And then we talked about alarms that can be in place to say, something has happened, or alarms in physical or alerts in software. All right. So these are different ways that you can put checks in place to ensure that whatever security measures you are putting in place are categorized under this and working. Corrective means to control. Corrective measures will control an attack. All right. For example, antivirus. All right. So there's been a virus, and antivirus will correct that attack or the virus. Recovery. Oh, there's one we missed. Okay. Deterrent will deter. At the physical level, fences, floodlights, security guard, dogs, bulbs. All right. At the technical level, what can deter? Yeah, intrusion prevention can do that. Intrusion detection, IDS stroke, IPS, intrusion prevention and intrusion detection system. Knowing that if you do that, it will trigger some alarm or trigger an alert. It will deter somebody from trying. Compensational. Controls that compensate other controls that are impossible or too expensive to implement. Too expensive to implement. All right. So at the border between American border, maybe the permanent solution to fix a particular border may be too expensive. So what are the little things that you do then to check? So that would be compensational in place of a wall that would be as tall as reaching heaven and then prevent people from crossing. And then there's also recovery. All right. Controls that help us recover from an attack. All right. So the fact that we are cybersecurity people protecting our network does not mean that once in a while, intruders or some AI tool is not able to break into our network. So when it happens, it's just a matter of time, maybe once in 300 years, once in 30 years, once in 5 years, but it does happen. What plans do you have in place to recover from such disaster? All right. So at the technical level, you should have things like backup. We talked about how about making sure that let us mention backup, yeah. Redundancy. Yeah, you may not know the difference between. So these are things that you have in place. So simply means where you can, there should be 2 versions, at least 2 versions. In fact, preferably 3 versions of the same thing always on, so that in the event that one server goes down because one fan is bad or the data center is bad, at least these 2 others are still on, and therefore your business continues without even realizing, without being affected by one server going down. All right. So this idea of having multiple versions of exactly the same thing running concurrently is redundant. So it's a recovery measure that you put in place. All right, so these are some of the ideas that you should get used to and be able to use to explain the concept that we are learning here, especially at interviews, to say, okay, yeah, that happened, but because we had redundancy in place, because we're adopting the HIPAA regulations, and then we had redundancy in place. It did not affect us so much, and then we're able to return to business within only a couple of minutes. To be able to use terms like that, but only after you understand what preventive, detective, corrective measures are in the context that we just explained. All right, guys. It's becoming a little bit boring now. We're talking. We'll come back to theory. So let's take a break and then come back and do practicals. And then once we have warmed ourselves up with some practicals, something that we have on our laptop to practice with, we'll come back and do a bit more of theory. And then we'll see how far we go from this. All right. Any questions? All right, let's go for 15 minutes break. 15 minutes break, and then come back.
Our marriage that he taught me, in this marriage, you never have to fight. There's no competition. We are one. And that brought me strength. He's always allowed me to be in my femininity. So if you ever want to know what to look for in a man, let me give you a simple key. A man who doesn't want to break God's heart won't want to break yours.
Yeah, what are you doing?
It's the movies.
Oh, you're heading to the movies already?
Yeah, it's starting at 7:30. So it's gonna be previews for
Where's the place?
St. Charles.
No, St. Charles.
Please mute yourself. I'm
Yeah,
trying to mute
you
everyone here.
save
You're not
you
able
the
to do it.
ticket.
Mute yourself, please.
Okay.
All right, guys, welcome back. Okay. So what we want to do now is take a break from the theories and do a little bit of practical. So we want to set up our lab. So our experience requires that we understand what enterprise networks are and how they work. Now, when we have okay, let's just talk about infrastructure. So when we have a server here, another system here, maybe not even a server, another system here within a physical, not even in cloud, just a physical system now. In order for the resources available within this system A to be shared and seen from this system B and even from this system C, all systems will be connected together, maybe using cable or wireless. So if I have this, where this is a cable, this is a cable, this is a cable, connecting all three systems together, then what I have ultimately is that I have a network of 3 computers. Where this network is within a building, whether the building is 77 stories or just a story building, we call that kind of network spanning across just a single building, local or a single room or anything less than that. We call it local area network, LAN. And the device that we use here to connect multiple systems together using the cable, so that one cable will plug in here, another cable from another system will plug in here, another cable from the third system will plug in here. We call this device a switch. So we have a switch here, and then we have a computer here. We have another computer here. We have another one here. We have a cable here. What else do we have? At least these 3 primary things we have here. Together, each of these items, each of these devices that make up this local area network, we call each of them network infrastructure. All right, so a switch is an infrastructure for our networking. Cable is one. This server is one. I mean, this system is one. Depending on what operating system we load here, if we load Windows Server operating system, then we can loosely call this system a server. If we load Windows 10 here, then we can loosely call this system client 1, Windows 10, client 2, and so on and so forth. All right. So this physical environment where we have a switch using cables, and then we'll connect all of the cables from the switch to each of the many computers forming the network, we call that local area network. Now, these days, this can be equivalent, this can be represented in a virtual environment, so that there is no need for us to set up, to go and buy a physical system A, physical system B, physical system C, go and buy cables, buy switch, go and rent a hall, come and run all of the cables and connect. No need, that is old school. The new school is that on our host will be our physical machine, our hardware. For example, in my own case, my laptop, which is generally called host, whether it's your laptop, whether it's your blade, whatever system it is. My laptop is already running an operating system. My laptop is running Windows OS. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to run another software on top of my Windows. These kind of softwares are generally called hypervisors. Hypervisor. All right. What is the use of the hypervisor? What does it allow me to do? It is the hypervisor now that will now allow me create as many virtual machines, as many other computers that are virtual on my host as the resources on my host will allow. So if it allows me to create up to 4 virtual machines, I'm going to create virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2. In other words, computer 1, computer 2, computer 3, computer 4. All right. So because this one is physical machine, I can see it, I can close it, I can touch it, but these ones are not physical. They are only resident inside of this other one that is physical. We call them virtual. All right. And each virtual machine is independent of both the physical machine, the laptop, and other virtual machines. So this is acting as if other machines do not exist. So I can have one operating system here, and it will run independently of this machine. Unless I really connect them together, then they are not aware of each other. They are independent, very important. So what we want to do right now is I want to go ahead and show you how to download a hypervisor and then load that hypervisor on my laptop. And then it will now give me the opportunity to create multiple virtual machines. And then I'm going to network all of these virtual machines together. I mean, we are going to network them together so that they will form what we call a network, all right? But rather than a local area network that is physical within a building, we are going to call this one an enterprise network, enterprise. And then we are going to load one of these servers, one of these machines with Windows Server. And like we said earlier on, because the enterprise network is will be running Windows Server operating system, enterprise networks that run Windows Server's operating system are specifically called domain. All right. So we'll show you how to form a domain out of the network, and then how to join other computers to the network. At the end of that exercise, which is just 2 lectures, you would already become enterprise network administrator. All right, just by understanding how all of this is done. All right, so now let's go, since we already have our host. And when I talked about depending on the resources, I think I said that more than once. Every time I say depending on the resources, what are the resources that are available here that I'll need to take from to create my virtual machines, and on which my virtual machines depend to run? The resources are, broadly speaking, 3 types: the CPU, the central processing unit, the memory, and the storage. These are the resources on my host that I am going to take from to create my virtual machines. So if I do not have enough CPU to go around 4 machines, then I may be able to create only 1 or 2. If I do not have enough memory to go around, by the time I put 4 virtual machines on my host and I'm running them all, it may be very slow or not even run at all, because the memory may not be enough for all of them to share. And the same thing for storage. So anytime we talk about system resources, these are the 3 you should always have in mind. All right. Any question before we now go and download? Okay, let's just go ahead and download the hypervisor, and then because it takes time, we can be taking whatever questions you have while we are downloading. Now, we already have our host running our operating system. So let's start from the hypervisor. So let's go to Google. There are many kinds of hypervisor. The particular kind we want to use here, if we go to Google now, we are going to use the one called Oracle VirtualBox. All right, Oracle VirtualBox. That's the one we'll use. And then, by the way, it's in the note. The link is already in the note. Let's take from the note. Let's go back to the note. Let's go back to the note. Let's take from 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 mm, 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 mm. So we don't need to be looking for a link when we already have one. All right, so we're going to create Oracle VirtualBox. Where is the download? Download Oracle VirtualBox from here. So I just click this, and then I click. Did I click? I hold down my control and click that. Yes, I think I clicked here. All right, so this is it. And then I'm going to look for, I'm downloading to Windows, Oracle VirtualBox base package. So I'll scroll down and look for Windows. I'm downloading for Windows. Anybody using Mac here? If you are using Mac, this is what you download to. If you are using Linux, you download your version. In my own case, this laptop is running Windows, so I'll take that and I'll see Windows installer. So I click that. All right, so that should download to my laptop. I already have it, but I just wanted you to see how it is downloaded. All right, that is downloading. If I go to my downloads folder and I click downloads, I should see that VirtualBox 7.0.14 has been downloaded. All right, so the next thing I want to do, this is my my hypervisor. When I said hypervisor, that is the general name for the categories, for the category of software that do this. All right, so specifically, I'm loading VirtualBox. So I double click that to load. It's one thing to download, it's another thing to install. So I double click that in order to install my VirtualBox. All right, so I say yes, go ahead. So next. As much as possible, I leave the default setting and I say install. When it does not require me to enter something, I just say install and I don't bother to change it. So this is installing on my Windows. Finish. All right. Those big English about hypervisor, type 1 hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor. This is just it. It's done. It's already installed. Anyway, this is type 2. We'll talk about type 1 later. All right. So if I come here, I see that my hypervisor is now installed. This is it. And this is you are going to install your own tool. All right. The next thing I want to do now is I want to create a virtual machine. So if I go ahead and create a virtual machine on my hypervisor, if I click new here, it's going to ask me what name do I want to call this virtual machine. I'll say server. Or maybe, yeah, let me call it server. All right. It's going to ask me where is the server operating system that I want to load? Where's my ISO? So I need to go and download ISO so I can take it from here. It's not downloaded. All right, so I stop this. Let me go back to the note to show you where to click once you have the note. So you come here, you see download server, you click this link. Hold down control and click that link. It opens this window where you can download directly from Microsoft.com the evaluation server operating system. All right, so you fill in this and then you download. All right, you're allowed to download and use this one free of charge for, I think, about 6 months. In any case, you need it just for 1 month or two, and then you'll be expert at this level. You don't need it anymore. So it's more than enough. So you are going to download your copy here. For my own case, I already have a copy downloaded somewhere, I think here. No, not there. I already have maybe virtual machine, but yes. So I already have all of my operating systems downloaded. And then I have given you the link to download your own in the manual. All right? Because it's going to take a while and it's going to eat into our time. So I'm just going to use the one that I already downloaded, server evaluation copy. All right, so that's the one I'm going to use. And I see that it's saved inside Oracle VM box. All right. So now I'm going to create my first virtual machine in which I would load my server operating system. All right. So I've filled this many times. There's no need for me to fill it again. So you just go ahead, fill it, and click download. So I'm just going to close this. And close this. All right. Okay, so let me go back to Mar24 virtual box. So I come back here, it's already there. And I say, and by the way, once you install your Oracle virtual box, it will show here. Look at it. It will show here on your desktop. The icon will show there. So just double click it either there or here. All right. And in your own case, if it's not showing anywhere, then just search for Oracle virtual box. It will come up and then you click it. All right. So many ways to reach it. All right. So once you have reached it, I'll take new. Like we said earlier on, let's give it server. And then I'll leave that. My ISO image is the CD that contains the operating system. All right. So the CD is already downloaded. So I come here and I say, go there. I go to other. I go to my downloads. What did you find it the last time I checked? Inside Oracle VM box, and this is it. So this is my server operating system. This is my Windows 7. This is my client operating system. This is my tally limit. This anyway. So the one I want to do now is install server. So I take that one and I say open. All right. So the virtual machine now knows where to get the server operating system. And this particular server I'm installing is server 2022. Whether I use 2016, 2019, 2022, it's basically the same thing. One is just slight improvement on the other. All right. So I don't want to do unattended installation. I want to monitor and attend to the installation right here. So I'm going to say, don't do unattended. All right. So I say next. So this is where I take what resources, what are the resources, what percentage, what quantity of resources am I taking from my host and assigning to this virtual machine? My host has about 36 RAM memory. How much of that do I want for the virtual machine? This virtual machine is running server operating system. Server operating system is big. I reckon it will need this much space. So I'm going to give it 16 gig out of my total of 36 gig. Yeah, let me leave it at that. For the processor, out of the 8 processors that I have on my machine, I'm going to give this server like 4 processors. But if I leave it at the minimum, it's really it may not even work. So let me give it enough resources. I'm creating a new machine, a new laptop within my laptop. I want to give it enough resources that it will be comfortable running Windows Server operating system. Windows Server operating system is a big operating system that manages an entire local area network of hundreds of computers. So it's not a small system. And this is not simulation. This is not virtual. This is real from Microsoft operating system. So yeah, it is virtual, but it's the real operating system that is loaded. So it will require enough resources to make it run. All right, so I guess that would do. If you want, you can add that, but this is what should do. Or why not? Let me add more after all. It's for training. Okay, so yeah. So I do next. Earlier on, I assigned the CPU and the RAM. Here, I'm assigning the storage. Remember, we said there are 3 resources that we normally talk about when we're assigning resources from host. So the storage here is saying it needs a minimum of 50 gig. Yeah, that should do. Out of my 2 terabytes, 50 gig. Maybe I should add a little more, just a little, 90 gig. Okay. So this system has no reason to misbehave because I'm giving it more than the basic resources. that it needs to operate optimally. All right, so I increase that and I say next, and then I say finish. So what have I done? I have assigned all of the resources from my physical system to the virtual system. So my virtual system has now been created. It's called server, created on top of my hypervisor. All right. Now let us go ahead and start the machine. So we'll come here, we'll right click and we'll say start this new machine in a normal way. So my new server is starting now. All right, so while it is starting, it's going to discover that there's no operating system. Now, how am I going to start? And then it will now load, install the operating system that we gave it the path to, which is our Windows Server operating system. So it's loading our operating system. It's going to take a while. So this is what, fundamentally, this is what network engineers do when they set up a brand new network. They install the server, and then once the server is up and running, everything is good with the server, they now start to join the other computers one by one until you have a full network. All right, so Microsoft Windows, blah, blah, blah. We just say next here. And then we say install Windows Server operating system. All right, so be careful here. Here it says Windows Server 2022 standard evaluation, Windows Server 2022 standard evaluation, desktop experience. Make sure you take that one. All right, I said in the note, look at the note. Create virtual machine, assign host, install virtual machine. Make sure you take the one that says desktop experience. Then you accept terms and conditions, and then you select custom Windows only. All right, let's go. So the next we expect is accept terms and conditions. Let's go. So we take the one that have desktop experience, we say next. We accept terms and conditions. We say next. And then we say custom, install Windows Server operating system only, custom. So make sure you follow that. I've already in the note. Not upgrade. You don't have something you're upgrading. You are installing from scratch. So you take this one. All right. Then you say next. All right. So your Windows installation is starting now with the copying of Microsoft Server operating system. All right. And then that will run all the way to 100% and complete the installation. All right. So while that one is running, if we just quickly return to the note, and then if you go to the end of the note, and then you see the sample project that we are going to do at the end of the course. And then you see your sample resume, the way it's going to look like. All right, just sample because we are going to modify. You see here that you are going to claim that which course is this? Information security analysis. Okay, somewhere here you are going to claim that manage and maintain enterprise network security within a domain. So that's what we are doing. So first of all, we are setting up an enterprise network, which we are going to call domain, and then we are going to practice some security tasks around it, so that at the end of the day, you're able to claim this first, ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the organizational data. All right. then conducted regular vulnerability assessment using, of course. Yeah, so this is the first one. So the reason I'm showing you this is part of what you're expected to know for you to say you're an IT person. You don't just jump from nowhere to become a vulnerability assessment person. You start from there. All right, so 7%. Wow, I'll be able to. Any questions in the time? All right, so let's see. 22% installation size ready. All right, so just follow those steps. Where are we now? Let's go back to the beginning. We are somewhere here now. Okay, this is where we are. Accept terms and conditions, install control. All right, this is where we are now. So the next thing we expect to type is server password. Type it twice. And then we'll now finish the installation of server, and then we'll move into configuration. All right. If there are no questions and no contributions, we'll just wait patiently for the installation to complete.
Hmm. Hello, sir. We can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hello, when did you start? Can you hear me now? When did you start not hearing me?
I've not been hearing you for like 10, 15 minutes.
After we return from break, you guys have not been hearing me.
Yeah, when we returned from break, we started hearing you. We stopped hearing you when you went on LinkedIn.
Why are you scared to talk now?
Uh,
Why did it
I
take you 15 minutes to let me know you're not hearing me?
I wasn't sure you were speaking. I thought you were just going, I was, you said you wanted us to wait for the server to install. So I didn't know you were talking when you were moving around. So
I
I
was
was like,
talking though. I was
okay,
talking. I was showing you around.
all right. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go back to our installation. Let's see, where are we? Bear with me. Okay, so all right, so this is our server. I'm trying to get control of the mouse. Switch. Do I have my mouse now? What's going on here? Alt. Where's one? I'm just gonna something. Let's restart it. So let's shut. Let's shut down the system. Then let's go back to my virtual machine. All right, this is my virtual machine. So let us right click and say start. Okay, so our virtual machine is starting inside the virtual box. What's wrong with our machine? Why is it not coming? Okay. Our server should start and give us a chance to define our password. All right, so the server is finally up now. So let's just customize our settings. So for this server, our username is administrator, compulsory we use it. Let's assign a password. I'll normally assign password day.
Akin,
Yeah.
we're not seeing your screen.
Oh, okay. Share screen. What happened? Can you see now?
Yes, we can see now.
I don't know what happened. Okay, thank you. All right, so for password, I'll normally do daily 2024 for consistency. No, I missed something there. Daily 2024. Daily 2024. Daily 2024. All right. For consistency, we are going to use that password throughout. Everywhere it requires password, we just enter that. So finish. So that way we're not looking for password up and down. All right, so our server is fully set up now. All right, so to log in now, we'll come. To log in now, we'll come to input, keyboard, and then we'll say insert, control and delete. So what's our password? Daily 2024. Press enter. So for the first time, we have successfully logged on to our server, our virtual machine. All right. Yeah, despite the hiccups, I'm sure that if you follow the notes, you'll be able to do it successfully. So what's the next thing we should do? Let's look at the note. What's our note? Let's do this. All right, let me refer to the note. Installing server operating system. What do we do now? Create and install virtual machine Windows Server. What are we now? Set virtual machine. We just signed in, keyboard, maximize display, promote server to domain control. Okay. All right, server, try managing servers with Windows Admin Center. No, I don't want. All right, so we have just installed our server. This is our server. All right. Let's quickly do something so that let's install the driver so that it has everything it needs and will not tell us it's not able to do whatever we may ask it to do in future. So to do that, let us insert the CD. All right, so we'll go to device. We go to insert get addition CD. So we've inserted the CD. All right, like we'll do physically, like open the old school CD, and then you go there. So let's go into, so this is the virtual machine. This is my own host. So let me go into the virtual machine file explorer, and then open the CD, PC CD drive. This is it. So I double click it to open it. And for this driver, my driver is a Windows server. So I'm going to look for VBox Windows Edition. So I'm going to take Windows Edition, that one. So I'll double click that one. And essentially I'm saying load the additional drivers that will make this system behave, like for example, the video driver that it needs to cover the whole screen if I want it to cover the whole screen, and some other. So I just say install additional, you see, guest additions. Fundamentally, it has what it needs to work, but just additional settings here and there. It needs additional drivers. That's what we call it. It will install all of the drivers, and then the system will restart, and then it will be 100% ready and fit. All right. And then it says, I have finished installing the additional setups, drivers, and then I'll say, okay, finished. And then it will restart the system. By the time it restarts, you have a fully ready Windows server. I'm not sure we're able to join the system to domain today, but I can just explain the theory that we don't rush the practical. So what we have now is a server that is alone by itself. All right. In order to create a network out of this server, we need to create the name for the network that we create out of this server is domain. So we need to create a domain. So if we go back to keyboard, insert Control or Delete, we'll be able to log in by providing our password daily 2024 hash. All right. And if we want, we can make it cover the whole screen so that it dominates our laptop. It takes over our laptop completely. The driver will allow you to do that. And then we can do that through view if we want. And do full screen mode. It's still busy. Let's just give it time to complete the task. All right, so maximize the VM display if we want. Already completed that. Insert get disk, click on folder, we completed that. Next, install, we just rebooted, and then we'll please finish. After rebooting, you may need to toggle to maximize. It will promote the computer to domain controller. It's not really important, but let me just show you in case you're interested. So adjust scale mode, full screen, take screenshot, auto resize, adjust window size. Let's try that. And then we'll maximize this. When it's covering me, maximize that. Okay. Let's try view, auto resize. Yes, it's covering the whole screen. Okay, so that's fine if we want that. It's taking the whole screen. So now, to form the network that we are going to have and then add other computers that we have not even created yet, other virtual machines. To do that, this is how to do it. We click Add Roles and Features. So if we come here, we'll click add roles and features. And then we go to next. We'll leave it here, role-based or feature-based installation. We'll click next. This is the only server that we have here. This is the name of the server. If we don't like this name, we can change the name to something we like. All right, so it says select a server that we want to add role and feature to. This is the only one. So we'll select that and say next. Of these many roles and features that we can possibly add to this server, which one do we want to add now? The one we want to add now of this is Active Directory Domain Services. Active Directory Domain Services. When you add this service to a server, and this service runs on a server, that server becomes your domain controller. This service is very powerful. It is the crown that makes your server domain controller. So among the job description you'll be seeing hereafter, they'll be saying, we need somebody who is familiar with Active Directory and is able to use Active Directory to do this, do that, do that. This is how to create a system that has Active Directory so that you can use it to practice. It is the crown. It is the computer wearing this crown on your network that is the king of that network. And the king of that network is called domain controller, whereas the network is called domain. All right, so we're going to install that. And then for this general, for this king, for this crown to be used, there are lieutenants that must work with it. It cannot work alone by itself. It needs errand boys, 2 of them. They are DHCP server and DNS server. Where is DNS? These 2 lieutenants must always work with that guy, with the Grapata. So these 3 together, this one alongside these 2 must be installed on your server for your server to become the domain controller. Right now it's just server, but once we install it and it accepts it and it's working, we will now start to call that server domain controller. All right, so we'll select those 2, the most important of those 3, the most important of them being the Active Directory Domain Services. All right, so we'll say next. These other features, we don't really need them for our class. If we're doing MCSC or some big certification, then we'll take a closer look at each of them. But for now, all we need for this basic class is just those ones that we set earlier on. So we just go ahead and say next. And then we'll say next. But there is something we did not do. This is not going to work. Let me close this. All right, let me show you something we did not do that we should have done. Let's go to add roles, add create. Let's go to the configuration of this server, local server. Let's go to local server. All right. So this is telling us the name of the computer. Like I said, if we don't want this name, we can always change the name here. All right, we can come here and change the name, but that's not our interest. Whatever name we want. Now, there are things that must be in place before this computer can join the network, and it's in the note. All right. If we wanted to rename the server, we'll rename, but don't worry. So the things that must be in place are: 1, this computer, this server must have an IP address. Here we see IP address assigned by DHCP, but we don't have a DHCP on this network. I mean, this is the first person to ever come to this village to settle. There is nobody that I can go to say, give me IP address. So there's no DHCP, so it's not going to work. So we have to manually assign an IP address to this system for it to work. And for us to assign an IP address, the interface on the system to which we assign IP address is called, remember when we drew the cable and we said a cable goes into somewhere and then the other end of the cable connects to your switch? So for this system, let us go and find that place. So 2 things to do. First of all, we go to the machine and we go to settings and we go to network. All right. On this network, there are possible, we can have a maximum of 4 adapters. Right now, we have 1 adapter. the NAT, we need to convert this NAT. I'm sure it's not too much for one day. Don't worry, let's just go over it, then we'll start. I don't mind starting all over again the next day so that we can, but for now, let's just see something. So for here, we see internet network. I mean, internal network. In other words, let me draw something. I feel I'm rushing you, but I still have 20 minutes. We don't really have to complete it, but let me just make sure the bit we're able to do today, you understand. Can you see my drawboard?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. So we have a domain controller. I mean, no, we have a server. This is our server. So what we want to form is a network of servers, of where this server is the king, and then we'll now have other servers, other computers within this network, and then we can join them all together. Of course, that is just a crude way of drawing it. A better way to draw it will be to say we have this system, and then we have additional systems. All right. And then the first thing we want to do is put a network interface card here on this system and ensure that the network interface card is facing these other systems and not facing the internet. We're not interested in the internet. We're interested in the internal network, not on this NAT. So we want to define this network adapter or Ethernet card as internal facing so that it can network with all of these other ones. We're going to install these ones later. So for that reason, we're going to come to this network interface card and change it to internal facing. So let us go to that machine. And then we'll go to network. And of the possibilities that are here, we're going to take internal network. And then we'll check advanced and we'll make sure that the cable is connected to that adapter by making sure this is checked, cable connected. All right, okay. That is done. So now we have inserted the Ethernet card. Where is it? That's my pen brush. Okay. We've done this. And then we've connected the cable. So the next thing we want to do is, every time we talk about network, we must talk about IP addresses. Even though you don't know about IP addresses, we must find a way to at least assign the first IP address, right? Because this computer, this server that we are trying to make domain controller now would communicate with this client 1, client 2, client 3, based on their IP address. It is the IP address of this computer that this computer will use to recognize this computer. So computers on the network, devices on the network are recognized and communicated with via IP address. So let us assign an IP address. So we'll come back here to the system. What's my system? Go to my virtual board. So for this system, it says DHCP. There's no DHCP, so that will not work. So I click. And then it takes me to the Ethernet card. I right click. And then I take properties. All right. So I go to IP address version 4. And I say properties. It says obtain an IP address automatically. There's nobody to give me an IP address automatically, so it will not work. So I'm going to assign an IP address by myself because this is the first guy. In fact, this is the guy that will even be assigning IP addresses to other computers. So we'll come here and say use the following IP address. All right. So here, don't worry about how did I get the IP address for now because it's your first class ever. So just come here and say 192. .168.100.10. All right, assign that IP address to server. And then press tab, the key, tab on your keyboard. It will automatically come up with the subnet mask. Accept that one. All right. When it asks you for the default gateway, in fact, let me simplify. Don't type anything. Just leave this true and say, okay. Choose. Let me close. All right. And then if you close this, where this one was saying IP address assigned by DHCP before, it should now tell us exactly what the IP address is, if it worked. So let us refresh to see if that worked. So if we come here and then refresh, we'll see that it worked because it has picked the IP address that we assigned. All right. So this way we have manually assigned an IP address. So we have made the two requirements. First of all, we assigned the network card and made it face the internal network. And now we assigned an IP address to the network card. All right. So this server has now been prepared for networking. All right. If you understand all of that, we can proceed. If you do not, ask questions about what we did that you did not understand. And then we can always proceed later. Do you understand the place of IP addressing in networking? That without IP addressing, we cannot have network? That computers on network, in fact, devices generally on network communicate via IP address. So
yeah, so I think I understand, you know, the importance of the IP address, but the way you went about assigning the IP address was a little bit too fast, and you know, I was just trying to, you know, understand, you know, but
okay. So let's do it again. So initially, this one was saying, go get your IP address from a dynamic host configuration protocol, some server that have been configured to automatically assign IP addresses. All right, that is advanced. We do not have that server. So I said, let us manually assign it because that server does not exist. So I clicked the link here. I clicked the link, it brought me to, so when we assign an IP address, there is a part of the computer that IP addresses are assigned to, the network interface card, also called the adapter card, the Ethernet card, the LAN card, but in this case, it's called the Ethernet card. So clicking that brought me here. So I right-click here, right-click. On my mouse, I click the right button, and I say Properties. And it brings me to this place where I can configure everything relating to that Ethernet card. But what I'm interested in here is IP address. So we have IP address version 4 and IP address version 6. IP address version 4 is the IP addressing that is used by human-friendly to understand. IP address version 6 is the new form of IP addresses that our children and our great-grandchildren will learn to use. But for us at this level now, it's IP version 4 that we are using. This is reserved for machine-to-machine communication. Although AWS is trying to force us now to start to use that, but for now, so this is the one I take. I take IP protocol version 4. So I take that one and I say Properties. So it brings me here where it said obtain an IP address automatically. And our argument is there is nobody to give us IP address, no server, no machine to give us IP address automatically. Therefore, we have to create one by ourselves manually. So we came here. And then I just took the figure that is in your notes. This is not the time to explain how I got that figure. This 192.168.100.10. Just use it like that. So I came here after saying, use this IP address that I'm going to give to you. I came here and I said 192.168.100.10. I type that in. And then I press the tab. There's a tab key on your keyboard. on the left-hand side of the keyboard below the number 1 and below the sign before 1. So I press that, and then it comes out with 255.255.255.0. I leave it like that. I don't change anything. I just leave the subnet mask. Because trying to teach you how that came about is a different topic entirely. So once I achieve this, I say okay. All right, and I say close. And then I close this. And then I came here and wait patiently for this new IP address now to reflect here, because what was here earlier on was get an IP address from a DHCP server. And then waited for a while, and then I refreshed, and then it reflected the new IP address. So this is the new IP address. So now this server recognizes itself by this IP address on the Ethernet, the only one network interface card. In fact, yeah, let me not complicate it. So that was how I got that IP address. Well, if you want to go just a little bit technical, we can come here and I go to command prompt, and I click that. And I can actually ask this system, what is your IP address? And the way to ask this system, give me your IP address is IP config. If I type IP config and I press enter, the system will tell me that my IP address version 4 is 192.168.100.10. I will say, good boy, that's exactly what we'll give to you. Now you have accepted it. Now you know your name. You just like asking, what's your name? And then it gives us. As for the version 6 part that is complex to use right now for our brain, this is what it looks like, but don't worry about it. We'll simply use this version 4 that is more user-friendly at our levels. So the takeaway from here is that we must first of all assign an Ethernet port that is internal facing, and then assign an IP address to that for us to be able to proceed to say we want to form a network. Without those two, nothing like network. We'll try, and we don't get. All right. Remaining 7 minutes is too short for anything serious. So let's just revise what we've done so far. All right, that was a good question. Did revising it help you understand it?
Yes, it did, and hopefully, probably when I go over it again, it's going to help a lot, because I think what has been a little bit difficult to assimilate was connecting the cards and the IP address together, but I think I will try to go over it, because that was a little bit too cumbersome.
Yeah, let's do that again. Yeah, even though you have the video to watch over and over, but let's do it. So in the virtual environment, since we are doing everything by click and not physically attaching LAN card and cable, so for this machine, we go to machine, and then we go to settings. All right. From all of these settings that you see, what we are interested in here is not adding additional storage. It's not adding additional CPU. It's not adjusting the monitor, our display. What we want to do is relating to network. So we click network. So when we come to the network card, we can use it in any of these many ways. There are many ways to use a network card. You can use it as a NAT, bridge adapter, internal. Explaining all of this will really be distracting you from being a security person to be a networking person. That's not the intention. So I'm just going to go straight to the point. What we want to achieve here is, where's my pens? Where's pens? Where do I keep? Oh, maybe I have the pen inside the other machine. Maybe I have to find my pen. Okay, but you remember what we drew earlier on? You'll see it in the video. So we want to apply this network card so that it is connecting with other systems, other devices, other computers that we are going to set up within the domain.
Okay.
So because we are talking about this king, you are not king of another country, you are king of this internal place. So you should face your internal people. So we say internal network. So we take that one. In other words, this network card, you are going to be using it to communicate with your internal network members that we are still going to create in future. So we took internal, exactly. That's how we took it. All right. We would have taken any other one depending on the situation, but this is the one that applies to us. If we left it on that, what that would have meant would you are communicating with internet and with external computers that you don't have business with, external affairs. But that's not what we want. I mean, there'll be scenarios where we want that, but right now, we want to make you a king. So return to your homeland and face your village people. So this is so this is the one that says that.
Internal
Yes,
network.
Internal network. So having redirected the adapter from businesses that are not his to his own business and now assigned an IP address to that adapter, we are now ready to set up a network. We have made those two conditions. Those were the two things we did.
That's much more clearer.
All right, so we'll now continue from there now that we have done these two, how do we now progress to actually set up the network? And when we set up a network using Windows Server like we are doing now, ultimately we are going to stop mentioning the word network and use the word that is more, another word to replace network, which is what the vocabulary actually encourages. Because network is general, but when you mention this word, you are specifically talking about networks that are built around Windows Server operating system, haven't gone through everything we are going through. That word is domain. So we're going to set up a domain where this computer, this singular computer that we have right now that we are pampering, we are working on and doing everything, it is going to become our domain controller. Domain controller. And there is something we must do on our server before we can make it a domain controller. There's a crown that we must put on the server. Before we can say, welcome, sir, you are now our king. What is the name of that crown? Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS. And I bet you of all of the job descriptions you'll be seeing relating to security, number one, number two will usually be around, you must understand the concept of ADDS and be able to use it, both within enterprise network like domain, and more especially within cloud like Azure, Microsoft Azure. All right, so we are starting to learn, not just to learn it, but actually to install it now so that we understand it better.
Yes.
All right. So if you didn't ask, we will not have the opportunity to explain it better like we did now. So if you don't talk and you're just watching, you'll not learn. Yes, any other questions? All right. Let me just ask a few questions to see who is following, even though only Christopher has been. Christopher, this your name is familiar. Have you been to Accra before?
No, sir. This is my first time, actually.
Okay. We've had so many Chris's. All right. Okay, so, yes, let me ask questions now, just to, even though you are the only one speaking. So maybe you answer all the questions on behalf of the public. All right, so let me quickly ask just two questions or three. What have we done today? Where's the note? Where's the note? Okay, can you mention 2-3 domains within the subject of cybersecurity? There are different domains within cybersecurity. Can you mention just 2 or 3 of them? Anybody, not just group.
Identity and access management and SIM.
And what? SIM, okay. Correct, thank you. All right, any other person? There are more domains. You want to mention one or 2 more in addition to that?
SOAR.
Sorry?
SIM SOAR. Is that
You mentioned the operations and tech.
The answer is right in front of you. No need to go far. Any other domain? Are you seeing my notes, my Word document?
You're talking about the seven domains we're talking about.
Yes, the 7 domains, yeah. The 7 are the domains. The other ones that the gentleman was talking about, they are not actually called domains. They are just, you may want to call them. Actually, there's no different, what name should we give them? Different areas of, let's call them categories, because they are not popular. All right. So back to domain, just mention 1 or 2 more.
We have the endpoint, the application.
So endpoint security. If you mention endpoint application, you are not communicating with me. But if you enter endpoint security, application security, then I know you know what you're talking about. Good. All right.
Okay.
So let's ask just 2 more questions. In securing our cyberspace, what are the 3 key areas known as the triad that we must keep in mind and make sure that our security is tailored around securing those 3? Yeah. What is CI? What the full meaning?
Confidentiality, identity,
system integrity and
availability.
You said confidentiality what?
Integrity, information integrity.
Integrity and availability.
Yes. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So whatever we do in cybersecurity, in security generally, we want to make sure that none of these 3 is compromised. The day any of those 3 is compromised, that's the day we lose our job. All right. One more question. Okay. All right, so that's it. In order to create virtual machines within your host, what do you need to do first? What 2 or 3 things do you need to have in place before you can create virtual machines on your host?
You need the hypervisor.
You need the hypervisor. That's the correct answer. The other 2 or 3 are just to deceive you to think they are made. Hypervisor is the answer. So you need to install your hypervisor, and that allows. All right, give me an example of hypervisor that you have installed before, that you have used.
Oracle Virtual Box.
Correct. All right, so that's it for today, guys. So we started well, so we'll build on this and then we'll continue to practice. So that at the end, can you see what we have here? So at the end of the first 2 weeks, you should be able to Active Directory security. You should know and practice group policy and security signal. You should know what event logging and auditing is, and you should be able to implement role-based access control, all within your enterprise before we even talk about going to cloud to implement this within Azure. All right. That's all for today. All right, so these classes are supposed to be Saturdays and Sundays, but I will not be available tomorrow, Sunday. So please, tomorrow, Sunday, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we actually have 5 Sundays during the year. It's good for us, so we'll still be able to meet up. But usually it's 4 weekends of 8 lectures. So tomorrow, Sunday, please, I'll send this note to you since you have, for those that have paid, so that you follow the note and set up your own virtual environment and install your own server like we have done now. If you run into trouble while trying to do that, please take a snapshot and then share it in the group. I'm always there in the group to support you, to tell you this is what you are not doing right, do it like this, do it like this. So no class, only tomorrow, Sunday, but subsequently, we'll now have classes Saturdays and Sundays for the remaining 8 classes. It's just tomorrow that we are missing. I want to use tomorrow to round up with the previous class. All right, bear with me. So I'll be there to support you tomorrow, but no class. As for whether we'll now have whether I'll reschedule that class specifically or not, let us just start properly upper Saturday and see how it goes. But that does not mean that you shouldn't practice. Once you have the note, just follow the note step by step and start to practice what we have done so far. Don't wait until we hold class first. So we're not meeting tomorrow, but after that, it will be Saturday, Sunday, same time, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Texas.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Where can we drop our emails for us to receive the notes?
It will be. Are you already in the group?
Yes.
So in the group, just click my number there, TTC, theITern, and then leave it privately.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So as for the other class, we're doing that class, join the class for the people for the other class, join on Tuesday, and then we'll start on Tuesday with Agile IAM Engineer, Cybersecurity. All right, if all of that was too much for the first day, no problem. We'll revisit all of that one more time, and then we'll make sure everybody understands it before we move forward. But if you don't talk, and I don't know whether you understand it or not, then we'll just move on with assuming that everybody understood it. All right, guys.
Please, sir, are you sending out the recorded video? Because I think it's going to also help in trying to set up the virtual network.
Yeah. So we'll share the link in the group.
Okay.
And then once we are no longer sharing the group, I have your email, I'll be able to share it privately. But for this first one, we'll share the link in the group. All right, guys, that's all for today. Thank you. So we'll see you again on let's see before Saturday in the group, but formal class will be Saturday.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, guys.
Bye.